independence referendum for West Papua has been presented to the United Nations. The document, outlawed by Indonesia, was apparently smuggled across the country and signed by 1.8 million West Papuans. Our PNG correspondent Eric Torchek joins me now from Port Moresby. Eric, talk us through the circumstances in which this petition was circulated through the country.
Over the last few years in West Papua, in fact, over the last 40 years in West Papua, there's been, an ongoing resistance to the Indonesian presence in those areas. And in recent months, I suppose there's been allegations that the amount of repression from the Indonesian army in the West Papua province has been increasing, and that more people are being arrested. So while this was happening, the agitation from the independence movement from within, and also from expatriates, West Papuan expatriates around the world, has been gathering speed. There's been a number of pushes. It's been raised at international fora, including the Pacific Islands Forum, when Tony Abbott attended here in Papua New Guinea 2 years ago. And it's certainly been an issue that the West Papuan independence movement has been trying to put on the table, raising the issue of colonisation of the province by Indonesians, particularly from the island of Java and Sumatra. It's something that the West Papuan independence movement has been trying to get prominence for in the international community for some time. This is probably their most bold move, and it means that they have achieved something, an engagement with the West Papuan population that they haven't before been able to do in the face of the pressure from the Indonesian military and police. They've been able to get this petition and get the what would seem to be an extraordinary amount of signatures in favour of it, 70% of the population, the Melanesian population of West Papua, and be able to present it at the United Nations. So for them, this is quite a significant moment.
So the UN is now in receipt of this document. What could it prompt in terms of action?
I think one of the things that the petition is asking for is for West Papua to be put back on the decolonisation list. It was removed from that list. So what happened is the Indonesian administration brought in colonists, as I mentioned, under a program called Transmigrasi, and it started creating regencies within West Papua. That's administrative regions. The government within West Papua, the regional government there is dominated by by people who are not from West Papua. And also the business ownership and things like that as well. So that has really spurred the argument that West Papua has been continuously colonised throughout the last 40 years, or 50 years now, I'm sorry, of Indonesian rule. And so really what they want is for decolonisation of that province to be back on the agenda, for the native Melanesian population to be empowered and given a say in what happens in the province. But this would be a very significant thing if the key demand of the petition is an internationally supervised referendum, because there was a referendum in 1969, what was called the Act of Free Choice, and what West Papuan activists call the Act of No Choice, in which a small number of West Papuans were asked to vote on whether or not to accept, to be part of Indonesia following the withdrawal of the Netherlands. And it's been controversial for years, ever since 1969. The low amount of people voting, and the fact that they allegedly were forced to vote at gunpoint in favour of Indonesian rule and amidst interference has tainted that vote in the eyes of West Papuan activists ever since, and in the eyes of many in the international community. So what they really want is an internationally supervised referendum. Indonesia is likely to not accept that in any way, because it knows that there is an enormous amount of disaffection with its rule in the Papua provinces. So it would be a significant step if they could get traction for an internationally supervised vote to take place in West Papua.
And so, Eric, just briefly, has the Indonesian government had anything to say about it yet?
Well, there's been some comments in the lead-up to the presentation of this petition, which triggered, Indonesia's right of reply. It dismisses the claims of human rights abuses, and more particularly the most strident claim, which is of genocide. The activists, the independence activists from West Papua, claim that there is a slow-motion genocide in West Papua. That's strongly rejected by Indonesian authorities. They also reject the claims of ongoing human rights abuses against activists and people who support independence from within the West Papua region. So Indonesia is likely to react quite strongly to this demand for a referendum, and it will be lobbying very strongly against any international pressure towards an internationally supervised vote. That's for sure. That's consistent with the way it's acted in response to previous attempts by the West Papuan independence movement.
PNG correspondent Eric Tortek. Former US